Mark Malley, CEO of Bellevue Group, Frank, founder of Thomas Franks. I think the first thing I'd like to do is to thank you for three things, really. One is your business. We're so grateful for that, and we'll come on to that. And secondly, your amazing donation. To remind those that watch this, you reached out and provided a large sum of money to provide many thousands of meals for those suffering in food poverty through our charity. And thirdly, to tell you something you may not know, that your last LinkedIn post inspired other executives that we are working with and we weren't working with to actually donate to Feeding Communities. They listened to what you said and were touched by the fact that I think you mentioned homelessness is a scar on our society and shouldn't exist. And that resonated with them. So thank you for all those three things.
That's very kind, Frank. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. So let's talk about one of your schools who's been working very hard over the lockdown on Feeding Communities. That's the Hampshire in London. Conrad, the executive chef for the Hampshire, one of your flagship schools, nominated twice as finalists in the recent awards, I believe.
I've been told that several times.
There's definitely a pay rise in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So they've produced hundreds and hundreds of meals for a wonderful charity for homeless called St Mungo's. And it's a number of homeless charities that we do work with in Thomas Franks. One of them is Only a Pavement Away, one's Under One Sky, and St Mungo's were so grateful to receive this food. It's just a quick question, really. Now you've heard that this donation is being used at one of your schools, and it's been helping people in their hundreds, and will continue for a long time. How does that make you feel?
Humble, very grateful that through you there's a vehicle. Frank, I think a lot of us, most people are good people, and actually kind of injustices in society, I think, bother most people. And a large number of people want to do something about it, but actually very few then take the next step to do something about it. And to your very great credit, you have. And your initiatives at Thomas Franks are excellent and helping thousands of people. And if that's the vehicle that someone like me can go through, then I'm all over it. I mean, so really it's thanks to you as opposed to thanks to me. And I'm just pleased that we can do this initiative together to help these people in food poverty, as you say, and homelessness, which I think you and I both care very deeply and passionately about. I was sort of thinking about this the other day when it comes to homelessness. I mean, so much of homelessness, as we know, is around drug addiction. And how do you get started? How do you give someone a foot in the ladder if actually they haven't got a roof over their head and a hot meal in their stomach? And until we do that, it's very hard to then tackle some of the kind of the kernel of the problem. And so my hope is that through the work that you're doing, some people might come out the other end and actually move forward in their life. So I thank you to you.
No, it's great. And I think some of the feedback we had was that in last year's campaign for feeding the homeless and homeless charities, it was actually quite warm last year. And one of the charities that we were delivering to in Reading asked for the food to be hot because there's a currency on hot food in the winter for homeless charities. So your school actually produced hot food for St Mungo's, and just a smile on people's faces to get the simplest of food, well cooked, but delivered hot.
Yeah,
because they're literally outside freezing for most of the day, even though they are in shelters for the evening, was just something that was extraordinary. It touched many of us and made us realise just what we've got. And I think the pandemic has taken so much away, but the question is, do we need any of it back? What do we need back to live a full and fruitful life? These guys just want a hot meal.
Yep.
And education and employment to get out the other end.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. And
thank you.
Just hearing from other C-suite level executives like yourself, where you've inspired them to come onto our campaign to donate and to offer up their kitchens, is something you should know about, because there's been dozens of examples of that.
That's great to hear.
A few more questions for you. So tell me, this Bellevue group, why did you form it in the first place? What was the idea behind that?
Yeah, I wish I had the answer. I mean, but why did you form Thomas Franks? You care deeply about something. You know, you care deeply about something, and you never have aspirations of it being something huge. I mean, any entrepreneur will tell you that, you know, you basically in your early days, it's how am I going to pay the bills next month? I mean, you never have grandiose ambitions, but just bit by bit, things get better, and I think for me, education is a clearly I've been doing this for 20 years. It's clearly a huge passion of mine. I think it's super important, and I've always been someone who believes, as I know you do as well, Frank, that the way to build and grow your business is by focusing on the quality of what you do and not cutting corners and being unrelenting about that. And that's quite a long-term approach, but that's always the approach I've taken. I care deeply about education. I care deeply about all this. I mean, we have 21 schools in our group. I care deeply about every one of them. I care deeply about every single pupil in every school and their families. I care deeply about every person that works in one of our schools. And if you carry that passion forward, it's very rewarding. And so for me, you know, 20 years in, I still love my job. I mean, there are frustrations, there are headaches, you know, I feel misunderstood at times, all this sort of stuff. But when you stand back at it, I love my job, and there's still loads more I want to achieve. So I happen to fall into education. I happen to like it. I'm not sure I had much ability, but I certainly had a lot of energy, and that energy and then learning sort of on the job took me a long way. And that's, you know, 20 years later, this is where I am.
That's a good answer, because we're quite similar in that way, that if you enjoy what you're doing, then you'll want to continue doing it. But I think one of the most rewarding things is coming across great people. And we've only been involved in a very small part of your group, but the one thing that resonates is the quality of the individuals. So headmasters, headmistresses, people like Greg Davis, who has to be mentioned, of course, obviously. But everybody in the Bellevue group, it feels like a family that has one vision and one set of values. And you can see that occurring as a foundation, even when you go into different academic institutions.
Yeah.
So that's something which I've noticed, and I look forward to doing more of that with you into the future.
Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, it's education is a people business. So, like, you know, we don't manufacture anything. It's people, and you know, it's a case, I think, of sort of setting the parameters, setting the framework, but then trusting people to do their job and encouraging them to try new things and recognizing you'll make mistakes, but that's okay. No, so they're really good people. And, you know, I'm sure it's like you, Frank, when you spend so much time with a group of people, you want to like them. And that's important as well. So, you know, and Greg's not a bad guy, so it's working out.
That's two mentions for him.
You'll be pleased.
Just on a final point, apart from the charity feeding, which you're doing, which is wonderful, we're talking to your headmasters and headmistresses about this Beyond Education Being Human training program, which is to try and teach up to 100 children a week how to cook real food. And again, that's nil cost, but it's something which I think the parents would see as adding value. And I know we're talking to your heads about that now, and I'd love to see all the Bellevue schools doing that, where children are being taught from the age of 5 to cook and produce a loaf of bread and then go on to higher end dishes. And I think it's a life skill. And at the same time as doing that, your kitchens can each produce, say, a surplus 100 meals to go to a local charity close to Sherfield or close to the Oratory or close to the Hampshire or wherever the school may be. That's probably the next phase 2 of our project. So what does that sound like to you?
I love the idea.
Good.
I love the idea in several ways. I mean, one, I think there's a general recognition that that too many children are mollycoddled and things done for them too readily and too quickly. Partly it's because, you know, you don't want your children to fail, or you want them to succeed in life, and so parents, I mean, I'm seeing it, parents tend to do too many things for children. And I mean, I think developing life skills is a critical element of that, and within that is obviously cooking. You know, the other thing I say about it, Frank, is that in schools also, I mean, if you look at our group of schools, children are very lucky. I mean, they're in these small classes, and it's very privileged, and we're very, very aware of that. So, of course, in our schools, we have a lot of discussions about, well, what more can our children do to to give back to others much less fortunate. But it becomes very challenging to sort of avoid the tokenism. You know, the sort of token gestures, you know, the kind of raising money for a one-off charity on one particular day in a year, when actually that charity doesn't really resonate or have any meaningful impact on that particular child. And I've always liked initiatives which you can bake into the curriculum, so it's a more of a longer term thing. Yep. So that can be things like children, you know, going to a sort of local or people's home once a week over the course of a whole academic year. So it's not just a token effort, you actually develop relationships with these people. And I think what I like particularly about your idea is that it falls into that bucket of it's something we can put into the curriculum, which has real meaning and real impact. And I think it's something that our pupils will be able to hang on to, and it will resonate with them, and it will feel tangible. So I like it very much. So let's get it up and running.
We'll do that. We'll trial it somewhere. We'll ask Greg. That's his third mention. That's the last mention of Greg. So I think finally, just to say thank you again for what you've done. We can't ever underestimate the kindness that comes from companies and institutions like yourself. It is doing a lot of good. And the donation that you put in place, which was not insignificant, is going to be enough to take us through to the end of April and help many people, probably from, I think, the next two kitchens, Sherfield and OPS.
Great.
But we'll certainly keep Conrad busy at the Hampshire as well. So we thank you.
Thank you, Frank. I really appreciate your kind words. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.